Okay, I'm ready.
No, I still got funny screen though. Oh, I don't need this, right? Let me get rid of this. Okay, Paul's back out again. Okay, let's try this. Okay. Whenever you're ready, Ted, I guess.
You got everything running?
I think so. Let's see. Yes, yes, both are running. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm just having an off day.
It's
No,
okay, Joanne.
it's okay. It's Monday. Oh, wait.
Oh, wait, it's not Monday, Ted.
Tuesday.
It's Tuesday.
Come on,
It's all right, Ted.
I gotta tell you, well, I've had 2 Mondays so far this week. Anyway, all right, all right, we're up on YouTube. I got it. Good. Okay, let's start. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to whoever's got their mics on. If everybody would just turn off their mics until we get to roll call, please. Thanks. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Zoning Commission of City of Danbury, December 10th, 2024, 7 p.m. Let the record show we will begin with the roll call at 7:14. Commissioner Bennett. Commissioner Bennett is here. Commissioner Botello.
Here.
Commissioner Cabrera.
Here.
Commissioner James is absent. Commissioner Jowdy.
Here.
Commissioner Nazario.
Here.
Commissioner Nejame. Absent. Commissioner O'Neill.
Here.
Commissioner Harrison. Absent. Commissioner Villacrez. Absent. And I am Chairman Haddad. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7. Okay. The next regular meeting is scheduled for January 14th, 2025. If everyone would stand, if you have flags, hold them, and you're welcome to it. And let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag.
of the United States of
States of America.
and to the
And to the
republic
republic
for which it stands, one nation,
under
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice
for all. Very good.
Thank you, thank you. Where are we here? Check. Everyone should have received the minutes of the October 8th meeting. It's a public record, part of the packets. Commission members, what's your pleasure? Is there a motion to approve the minutes of accept the minutes of October 8th, 2024?
I'll make a motion,
Botello.
Commissioner. I'll make a motion to the previous minutes from October 8th.
Thank you. Second by Commissioner O'Neill. Any discussion? Changes, additions, deletions, modifications, subtractions? None. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? This meeting of the Danbury Zoning Commission is being held on Zoom as a virtual meeting. Even though this meeting is a virtual meeting, members of the public and interested parties continue to have the opportunity to participate in the meeting in a couple of different ways. You can participate via Zoom and see the audio and video, or you can call in by phone and participate via audio only. Please be aware that we may have to mute your microphone or telephone to avoid an echo or some other background noise. This is also being streamed live via YouTube. Instructions on how to participate in the meeting appear on the City of Danbury website, and all of the documents and materials that apply to the matters to be discussed during this meeting, including the agenda, are also available on the City of Danbury website. As always, if you have any questions, please contact the City of Danbury Planning and Zoning Department. As a reminder, the entire meeting will be posted on and can be seen on the City of Danbury website. We will follow the posted agenda as per standard practice. If prior to the meeting, any questions or comments on agenda items were submitted via email to Director El Bakri, those comments will be read during the appropriate portion of the meeting. Finally, please remember that technology glitches sometimes do occur. Please be patient if that happens. Thank you to Ms. Reed. She was struggling through an upgrade that Zoom handled right in the middle of everything here, but she worked us through it, and I appreciate it, Ms. Reed. Thank you very much for getting us through this. Legal notice. Notice is hereby given that the zoning commission of the city of Danbury will hold a public hearing commencing at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, December 10th, 2024, in a web-based meeting hosted on Zoom to consider the following matter. Petition of Bright Ravens Development LLC to amend sections 4A, 6E, and F of the zoning regulations, in parentheses, revise area and bulk requirements and density calculation for cluster developments in the RA zones. Copy of this application is on file in the town clerk's and planning and zoning offices for public inspection. Parties and interested and citizens shall have an opportunity to be heard at this time. The agenda will be posted on the city website and will include instructions on how to access the Zoom meeting and view the meeting in real time on YouTube. Theodore J. Haddad Jr. Chairman, posted on the city website, town clerk's office on November 26, 2024. Published in the News Times on November 29, 2024, and December 6, 2024. Purchase order number 2025-503. In addition, the agenda was filed in the town clerk's office on Thursday, December 5th, 2024 at 5:39 p.m. Check. The first petition this evening is, first public hearing this evening is a petition of Bright Ravens Development LLC to amend sections 4A, 6E, and F of the zoning regulations, in parentheses, revise area and bulk requirements and density calculation for cluster developments in the RA zones. Let me go first to the Planning Commission recommendation, the 8-3A report, 8-3A referral to Theodore J. Haddad Jr., Chairman, Danbury Zoning Commission, from Arnold E. Finelli, Chairman, Jr., Chairman, Danbury Planning Commission. At the web-based Zoom meeting held on November 20th, 2024, the City of Danbury Planning Commission voted to give the above reference petition a positive recommendation for the following reasons. The proposed amendment aligns with the following Plan of Conservation and Development POCD goals, principles, and objectives. Number 1, expanding housing opportunities and design flexibility. Number 2, concentrating development near transportation infrastructure. Number 3, directing growth to well-serviced areas. Number 4, expanding the housing supply and diversity. Number 5, reviewing and modernizing zoning regulations. These requested adjustments in the cluster development regulations offer enhanced flexibility in design and layout, preserving open space and promoting efficient land use. Approval with the outlined changes may support the city's goals without a substantial departure from established neighborhood character. Mr. Haas made the motion to give this petition a positive recommendation. Mrs. Hofstadter seconded the motion, and it was passed unanimously by voice vote with 3 ayes from Mr. Haas, Mr. Hofstadter, and Chairman Finelli. Additionally, our 8-3B from Westcog recommendation. Thank you for submitting the attached referral to Westcog dated November 7, 2024. The opinion of Westcog staff is that the proposal is of local interest with minimal intermunicipal impact. Therefore, it is not being forwarded to the adjacent municipalities, and the regional staff is making no comment. I will now call on Director Al-Bakri. If you can go over your staff report with us, please. Oh, Director, unmute, please. There you go. Thank you.
Here we go. Good
Thank
evening, Mr. Chairman. Good
Good
evening,
evening.
everyone. I'm not going to actually spend a lot of time going over all the details, but I'm just going to outline the major changes that were done after the Planning Commission. But before I do this, I will explain the difference between a cluster development and a conventional one. So, as the name might indicate, cluster here means that you put homes closer together and you have approximately the same number of units as if you were doing it under a traditional zone. A traditional zone will be something like RA80 or RA40. But the goal is when you cluster home together, you have more open space. And this is how this idea of cluster development evolved over the years. So, and typically in a cluster development, if you can visualize it, it means most likely that you will have what I would call a cul-de-sac, a dead end kind of a community that is not plugged into the network. So the impact, if you have homes clustered together, is not going to go beyond the actual development itself. The way this was done in our zoning ordinance, I mean in Dam Bay, is that you have a special exception under some standard zoning. Standard zoning is RA 40 or RA 80 or others. And if you meet certain criteria, you can apply for a cluster development. However, what happened is, which is explained in the staff submission, when it was included in City of Dam Bay zoning ordinance, what happened, it was very restrictive. And if you do all the calculations, you cannot get a similar number of units compared to a standard zone. This is a big, I would say it's most likely it was an oversight when it was actually done. So part of the petition by the applicant, which is the main content, is traditionally what you do for a cluster development, you calculate the density based on the lot size in the cluster development. The way it's done now, it's done based on the lot size in the main, or what I call in my staff report, the parent zone. So that's one of the requests from the applicant. Other is basically looking at the side yard and front yard requirement and reducing it to allow for what we call cluster development. The way it's done now, it's also not in line with allowing having homes closer together. Another part of the petition is the applicant is asking for allowing encroachment. Encroachment here means that you are actually having a building, but it's not habitable. It's something like a porch, for example, closer to the property line, which is very typical in cluster development in many zoning ordinances here in Connecticut. So when you look at the submission from staff, you will see that there were recommendations for fine-tuning the application. This was done following the Planning Commission meeting, and you will see in the new petition that all the, I would say, fine-tuning required has been done. And I'm not going to go back over what the chairman mentioned. So all the 5 different conditions were met in the revised petition. In addition to one other element which is only applying the new criteria if you are talking about a piece of land that is either on a collector or an arterial road, which is also included in the submission, I mean the revised submission. Because of that, the application as it stands now meets all the requirements from the Planning Commission. And as mentioned in the submission from staff, it's consistent with the goals of our POCD, as well as all of the new standards in planning that are happening elsewhere. With that, I actually come to the end of this very quick overview. Happy to answer any question.
Thank you. May I ask if you can go to your staff report on page 9, the bottom of page 9. Could we add the word, it says Clapboard Road. We just want to just specify and make that Clapboard Ridge Road.
Bear with me, Mr. Chairman, which
Sure.
one exactly? So page 9?
Page 9 at the bottom, the Plan of Conservation Development, point number 2.
Okay.
Second line from the bottom.
Yes, okay, we can do that.
Yeah, we'll just make it so for the public and for the commission members, should say Clapboard Ridge Road. So let me just go over a couple things for the record, if I could, Director. The as it relates to sidewalks, water, sewer, it's basically it matches up from parent zone to cluster. Nothing changes there.
Mr. Chairman, that's correct. One thing else just to clarify here, the requirement to have water and sewage, it's only clearly stated under cluster development. And we are not changing that. We're
So
just
no cluster development cannot happen unless there's water and sewer.
absolutely right, that's it.
All right. So what I'd like to do, if I can, first, let me check if there's any other questions of you. But I think I want the commission members to know that this is not site specific. We're going to be hearing, I think, from the petitioner as it relates possibly to his parcel. I'm going to ask the petitioner if he does speak to his parcel specifically. I'll then call on you to see if you concur with that, if that was spoken in correct fact as well. And then we'll go back to the petitioner again to finish his presentation. Commission members, are there any other questions of Director El-Bakri at this moment? Commission members. Commissioner Botello, unmute and you have the floor.
Okay. Waleed, could you clarify just for my own identification that we are now with this proposal, we are doing away with the special exception, no matter how many units will be put on the property? Is there any what I'm asking, my question is that will be any criteria that'll bring it back to planning so that this would have more of a following and be able to have more transparency for neighborhoods where it's going into?
Thanks for the question. So you, Mr. Chair, I would like to make the point clear. Cluster development is special exception, and it will continue to be a special exception.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commission members, anything else at this time? Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this petition?
Dave Daniels will be presenting for us, Chairman.
Do I see him here? Dave Daniels, you say?
Yes.
Oh, he's okay. I
He's
see
under
the name.
iPhone.
The name says iPhone.
There we
Okay.
go.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Bertram. Mr. Daniels, go ahead. If you just state your name and address and present. Oh, you're on, please unmute.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, we got you.
Sorry about that. Good evening. Good evening.
That's
everyone.
okay.
Thank you.
It's
Sorry about
Monday.
that. I was having a little operating difficulty with my new iPhone. So should have never traded it in. So
No problem.
okay. And Emma, are you there? Emma Carlson, are you there? My associate is going to just run.
Okay,
I've got a-
we got someone else too. Great, thank
Yeah,
you.
I've got a very brief PowerPoint, which actually is going to be even briefer because Waleed, who we've been speaking to about this over the last couple of weeks, stated a number of the things that I was going to go over. So Emma, if you're able to I'll just go. If you can go to the first slide, if you're able to show your
Yes.
screen.
Am I able to share my screen?
Yeah, I
Yes, you
I know
are.
you. Yeah.
I think I might need permission.
I thought I did it. Hold on.
Oh, yep.
There it
There we
goes.
go.
Okay.
Okay, so you can go right to the next slide, Emma, please.
Yep.
Okay, and oh. Yeah, so this is the petition that's it's already been discussed what the basis of the petition is. So you can go to the next slide, please. Now so basically there's 4 things that are going on here. Waleed touched on most of them, but that the density, the probably the most important one is that the density in cluster subdivision developments in the 3 specified zones would be based on only for eligible cluster developments, which are those that have not been completed as of December 10th of this year, which was the date that was put forth by city planning. So only those incomplete developments or new developments that are proposed would be the subject of these amendments. All the other ones would continue to be subject to the existing regulations. So as Waleed said, the lot size that would be specified would be for calculating the number of units would be the minimum lot size specified for each applicable district, which we'll go through in a little more detail in a future slide. The setback requirements will be changed. We'll talk a little bit more about that, and allow for encroachments into the front yard setback area for certain non-habitable features, i.e. stairs and porches, and I think it's decks. We'll talk about that. And then there are these additional conditions, all of which I believe came out of recommendations made by the city planner, as well as the commission upon their favorable recommendation. Next slide, please. So as Waleed stated, I mean, I had put together a little bit about cluster developments. I don't think we need to focus on that. I think Waleed explained that very well as to why it promotes efficient infrastructure, preserves open space, community feel, kind of a more affordability kind of an aspect in terms of the price point in the current climate. Next slide, please. That's a layout. You can see how sort of it lays out visually in terms of creating the enhanced open space. Next slide, Emma. Another picture. These come from, one of these is from the report of the planning department. Next slide. As one of the commission members asked, it will continue to be a special exception use, which will maintain the control of the commission in terms of any kind of a use having to meet the 10 or so requirements that have to be met, including these additional requirements that the planning department had recommended, as well as site plan approval. Next slide. And these are the general categories of the special exception requirements that have to be met. Next slide. Probably the key provision here, which explains that the basis for the calculation, again, it's the overall structure is the same. You're still limited to 85% of the gross area of the parcel being the denominator, but the numerator changes to, instead of being the amount of that would be specified otherwise in the district, for example, R40 being 40,000, it gets reduced for the R40 to half of that, and the same for the other two districts that are eligible for the cluster development. Next slide. This slide shows the setback changes for the non-eligible cluster developments. Those are staying the same. For the R20, it will, for eligible cluster developments, it will go from 30 to 20. The R40 from 40 to 20, and for the RA80 from 50 to 25. Similarly, for the side yards, for non-eligible versus eligible, it goes from 8 to 5, 15 to 5, and 25 to 15. Next slide. And then this was based on a recommendation from the planning department. The desire for any kind of encroachment into the front yard would be allowed, but it would be limited to stairs and porches. And I think that was supposed to say decks, actually, not dwellings. That's a typo, but it would, the maximum encroachment would be a third of the minimum front yard. So if you had 20, well, for simple math, you had 21 feet, which you don't, it would be 7 feet. So it'll be a fraction of 7 feet when there's a 20-foot front yard. And those structures cannot exceed 6 feet in height and have to be architecturally integrated with the principal dwelling, which obviously would be within the discretion of the planning commission to make that determination, which provides for a degree of control there. Next slide. And again, these access requirements that were added regarding private roads and sidewalks were the recommendations of the the planning department. And I believe, one or two of them also came out of the discussion with the planning commission, that there has to be a private road. It has to connect to an arterial or collector road, which are specifically designated in the city's zoning regulations. And it's got to be a dead end, cul-de-sac, whatever you want to call it. It cannot be a through private road. In addition, for the areas of the road along the dwelling frontages, you've got to have sidewalks on both sides of the road. As well, if there's if the arterial or collector road, which I believe, well, I'm not getting into site specific, so I won't, but Clabbered Ridge, for example, would be one of those. If there was a sidewalk network at the intersection of the access road and the private and the arterial collector road, then there would have to be a sidewalk run to that arterial or collector road. Next slide. As was stated, no changes to the majority of the conditions that are requirements that are applicable to a cluster development. We'll go through as with other than the ones we just went through. I will note this is not a change, but the open space requirement is limited to no more than 1/2 of the gross area of the parcel, less all lakes and ponds can be used as individual lots, thus creating the preservation of open space, which is one of the goals of the plan of conservation and development. Next slide. As stated, these amendments were drafted in collaboration with and incorporate the recommendations of city planning, including the requirements I mentioned. As I'm sure you all know, the state law requires that the text amendments be consistent. Waleed already went through the fact that there were findings that this proposed amendment would be in accord with the POCD, enabling, and the comment about it being a gentle increase in residential units consistent with modern planning practices. Next slide. So these are the actual. This is the actual text amendment, which again was really the product of a lot of input from the city planner. We started with one way, and he had some very helpful suggestions, which led to the way that we drafted it, which is that the first part here is to say that you've got to be one of these eligible subdivisions and meet all the criteria that we just talked about. The next section E preserves the requirements that are applicable to a non-eligible cluster development, so that those have not changed. And next slide, Emma. And then it goes on to talk about the regulations that would apply to an eligible cluster development. And these are, for the most part, unchanged, but the things that were changed were the ones that I already mentioned, the minimum lot area, as well as the minimum front yard and side yard. Next slide. And then you can see the next provision is about the requirement for architectural integration with the primary dwelling. If you meet that criteria, then the stairs and the porches, which do not exceed 6 feet in height, can encroach into the minimum front yard by up to 1/3. And then it goes on to describe the road and sidewalk requirements that I already outlined. F is really kind of a technical provision that it's a drafting thing, but it basically accomplishes these requirements being imposed on an eligible cluster development, irrespective of whether you're set up as a condo or as an actual development with separate subdivided lots. I believe the next slide, is there another one? Is that that's it?
Excuse me, Attorney Daniels, could you forward a copy of that to us, to our office?
Certainly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Emma, could you do that while I'm, so happy to answer any questions.
Going back one slide, it looks like F is really specific to the Damia development added for that purpose. But I think, let me ask you this question if I could, Attorney Daniels, and then I want to go to the director. If this petition gets approved this evening, does it change anything on the Glenbrook Estates or the Pembroke Road proposed projects? Do you know?
Dan, I'll turn that over to you. Yep.
And also, it looks to me like the date of the December 10th was put in there also because the Damia development is the only partially completed project in existence in Danbury right now as well. Correct?
Yes, but it would also apply to parcels in different zones. Steve Sullivan might have the ability to pull that up. It might be somewhere in the record that shows other potential parcels that could be developed in this manner.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But none of them are partially complete at this point.
Oh yeah, to the partial completion for sure. Yes. Yeah. And I think that like I took some guidance in what had happened on the job that Earth Movers is doing, which I think you referenced, where the sort of the same effect was done by going from R40 to R20, where there was a zone change. And so this is sort of broadening some of that same logic and preserving all the open space requirements, the transitions from what's being developed to the surrounding neighborhoods in any of the parcels that might be developed is the same. So that's the core logic.
All right. Is there anything else necessary for screen share?
I don't think so.
All right, if we can get it off of that page so I could,
Sure.
I like to look at the people when I talk to them. Sorry.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you, Mr. Bertram. So, does this change any density on your project up on Clapboard Ridge?
Yeah, the net effect of this is we look at that project, and we were making a presentation as what we thought would be copacetic for the entire city and presented that way, but I'm certainly happy to answer any questions. So on that project, there is at the end of the cul-de-sac, there are 2 foundations that are in and 2 that were never installed from the original 12. So in the last piece of developable land, there are 4 home sites that have not been started, and this regulation change would enable 12 homes to be built in that space. And the idea is you're just in the same area that had been disturbed originally. So there's no perimeter changes with that open space and the tree cutting and all that kind of thing. By bringing the homes closer together, that's what it's being enabled. So instead of having these 4,000 or 5,000 square foot homes that there are 8 constructed already, you would have, in addition to those 8, another 12, roughly 2,000 square foot homes. And it's a piece of the market that just isn't being built to. And so you aren't seeing it in Danbury. You're seeing it in attached housing for similar square footages, but not single family homes. So we were drawing from what we've seen be successful in other parts of the country. Colorado, I'd lived in Boulder for a bit. This type of thing is everywhere out there. And so I think it would be very, very attractive in Danbury and well received.
So the whole project, let's say pre this petition, was scheduled to have how many buildings?
12.
Not counting clubhouses or anything like that. 12 buildings.
Yep.
Total 12. And if this petition gets approved, it will have how many buildings?
It would be 20 is the manifestation on this site. The regs might allow for 22 or something like that, but there's just not the physical space when you factor in what's already been built and what the open space requirements are around the perimeter.
Okay. So, but none of those, the proposed 4,000 square foot foundations you have there, you said you have a couple of them?
Yeah, there are two foundations that were put in when many, many, many years ago when we were kind of just doing the initial development. And so when we started doing houses again a couple of years ago, post-COVID, then we built some large homes again, and it was not a thing that works, frankly. And so we won't build more big homes, but there were two foundations that we hadn't touched and built on yet, that we would demolish and build these others in their place.
Okay, so it's not like you're taking a unit or a foundation and putting in a duplex, two families on that one foundation.
No. This is all single family homes. So standalone single family homes.
Got it. Okay. All right. I have a clearer understanding then on that. And yes, you're correct in what your observations were in different parts of the country. That's actually where everybody is gravitating toward this type of concept. And
sure.
It doesn't seem as though your specific project, although commission, this is not site specific, I'll remind you again, I don't believe is taking advantage of the circumstance either. So thank you for those answers. Shall I go to a question? Are you finished for the moment, or you want to field any?
That would be our presentation,
right.
and the whole team is here to answer questions as they come up.
Let's see if we got any. I see Commissioner O'Neill.
So I'm just curious about a neighborhood that was established with like 5,000 square foot houses suddenly having 2,000 square foot houses, and how if I had the 5,000 square foot house, I might not be happy about that. But if I had the 2,000 square foot house, I would be very happy about that. Like what?
So I've
How do you think that affects the neighborhood?
Some of those people might want the project to be finished too.
That's exactly what it is. This is in the context of the manifestation on Damien Drive. This job started 20 years ago, and it stopped for many, many years. You had a COVID bump. That went away, and so it's just not a viable product. The homes that were built were very, very high end. There's enough of a critical mass for 8 of them to hold value, and these are the conversations I've had with the people who have purchased. But there are only a handful. The rest are just homes that are either rented or otherwise still held by the developer. So it's not a situation of any pushback within the community itself. In fact, we have support.
I have another question.
Comment? Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to ask, do you have any common a clubhouse, a pool, anything like that?
Yeah, there's a pool and a cabana.
Oh, it's already all up.
Oh, yeah, that was done many years ago.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Neill, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So it's my understanding that these were somehow classified as condominiums, and it was difficult to do appraisals and get financing on the single family homes that were condominiums. Will the new houses also fall under that criteria?
Yes, and they're at a price point, though, that is just a much, much broader market. And so looking at what Toll Brothers has done on the west side, right, we're drawing what has been done there in attached housing and sort of applying it to a single family model here. We think it'll be well received, but getting over $1 million in Danbury and not being on Candlewood Lake is a fool's errand. It was never a great idea. I don't need to tell you the background of all of it, but this is something that we think will be very well received. And the people who have, like I say, invested here, they understand. There's no delusions.
So I don't know what your price point is, but I just happened this morning at 8:30 to be over at Fieldstone Court in Bethel on Benedict Road, which are detached.
Yeah, the Steiners are doing something similar. Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know what I meant to say about that. Like, is it in a competitive? I mean, that's Bethel, this is Danbury, but like, they're not $1 million houses.
I'm sorry?
They're not $1 million houses.
Oh,
like,
no.
Marketable.
Our intention is to not do that or attempt to ever do that again. So Yeah, your price point would be in the 650 to 750 range for a new standalone home, and I'm not sure where exactly they are. I've talked to Greg Steiner because I believe that's his project. Is that okay.
There's been 3, just because I'm working in there right now. I know that 3 have closed at 3 have closed. 4, 2 have closed at 734. 1 closed lower, 6 something. So that would indicate that the price range is probably marketable.
Yeah, and a lot of this stuff is a function of construction costs, right? So if you're building in Greenwich or you're building up here, you have similar costs on the buildings themselves, and so this approach to getting more homes smaller on the same parcel is really a necessary thing to even have homes at this price point. Otherwise, it's attached housing, really. So
yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure, absolutely.
Commissioner Nazaro, you had your hand up for a moment. You good?
I did have my hand up, but my question was answered. It was around the price point of the individual units.
I thought maybe that was it. Thank you. Commissioner Jowdy.
Yeah, Dan, did you have a traffic study? Did I miss that? Because I missed maybe a meeting or two the last couple months. Traffic study on the project?
No, the impact of this, I mean, because we've done traffic studies in the past for much higher density alternatives for this that were showing no impact on Clapboard Bridge because it's currently a gated community and you're coming in and out on a state road. I think that's one of the criteria for being an arterial road so that there isn't sort of impact. And so what you have is a net difference of 8 homes. So there's no direct impact from that. I mean, while you could maybe talk about this, that these tweaks in density, it's not a material concern.
So you have 12 now, and then you're going to do 8, or is it 8 and then?
Yeah, it's 8 more than originally intended. Is the way it would manifest on the Damia Drive site.
So how many is occupied out of the 12 that are there?
So we have only built 7 and 1 more that was framed. So it's just a structure, weather-tight structure. In those homes, 3 are empty now. 1 is being rented with someone moving in at the end of December, and 2 are available for rent now because the market hasn't been there that it was close to what the homes cost. So that is essentially, I guess, 4 occupied going on 5 and 2 empty of the 7. And then 1 is just a shell that we will complete as a large home because modifying it to anything else would be too costly.
Right. So then there's 8 more or 10 more?
So of those 8, right, then there would be 12 more. We have entitlements for 4 more. If there were a market, we'd have built them years ago. But the net change is 8 more smaller homes.
Okay. Do you have I'm sure you have a condo association, something like that?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. And is there any verbiage in there about so many renters? Like if the market changes?
No,
you have a bunch of renters in there?
No, I think that we have the short answer is no, there's not an exclusion against it. It's always been at a price point where it was logically owner occupied. Now, we originally built, if we go back to the painful history of this project, which I'm happy to talk about, but it was my father's bad idea, and I don't want to be a disrespectful son, but I'm sort of like I got holding the bucket of water here, but it is what it is. And so we built 3 homes originally and had 2 shells. And so sold 1 and 2 were rented for over a decade. It was only when we had some of the COVID phenomenon that we finished a couple, sold a couple more, but we've only sold 3 homes. So it's not that hard to change the association when the motivation for everyone is to see a completed project. And so the people who are buyers here are supportive.
Okay, thanks.
Well, the
Sure.
developer still has control of the association.
Correct.
Commissioner Botello.
Yes, Mr. Bertram, question, is this Damia project, is that connected to the public utilities for water and sewer?
Yes, it is. And that was a requirement from day one in order to do the cluster.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Commission members, any other questions of Attorney Daniels or Mr. Bertram at this time? Commission members. Director, there may have been a couple. Mr. Bertram, did we point anything his direction?
How do you mean? I'm sorry.
Did we point anything in his direction that you were mentioning before? We said, yeah, I don't think traffic. Yeah, we talked about traffic. I don't think it's required on a project this small.
Right.
Okay. Let's see if there's anything else. Or anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this petition?
Chairman,
Is there anyone? Oh, I hear somebody. Who's that?
that's Paul Rotello.
Oh, hey, Councilman Rotello, if you get a little closer and go ahead. Wishing to speak in opposition to
Yeah,
this
can you
petition?
guys see me? Because I'm not.
Oh, we got you. We can see you. We can
Okay.
see you and we can
And you
hear
can
you.
hear me.
Yes.
Okay, I'm actually agnostic about this. If you recall, when you asked for people in favor, I waited for a bit and I raised my hand, and then
Yes.
Dan and the attorneys jumped in. But something came up during the presentation, and I'm glad that I waited to speak until the whole presentation was done. My main concern, and I've had this conversation in 3 different venues, and it's been answered in the affirmative, was that the amendment remain a part of the special exception already existing for cluster homes. So that's a lock. I mean, we heard it tonight on the record. I've heard it from staff in the past, so that's a good thing. That was my big concern. Not even an objection, just a concern that,
Yeah.
when this moves into a neighborhood, 30 acres of woods or something like that, the people in the surrounding neighborhood will be able to have their say. What I heard tonight that raised a red flag was the setbacks, and I'm not sure if I heard this correctly. Attorney Daniels seemed to indicate the setbacks would be 5 feet. I'm looking at one of his slides. It says the following use regulations shall apply for all one-family developments on an individual lot in red, which are not within the eligible cluster development. I'm assuming that this paragraph does not apply to the amendment, and we're looking at a minimum side setback of 8 feet in RA 20, 15 feet in RA 40. I have no problem with that, and 25 feet in RA 80. And then accessory dwellings would be smaller. But I seem to recall Attorney Daniels saying that the setbacks would be 5 feet on this one. And if you think about that, I mean, a typical parking lot is 9 feet wide. I grew up in a large Victorian house that my mom's family financed development in the 1890s. And I thought those houses were close together, but you could get a car in between the buildings to get into your backyard. They were actually designed for horses and wagons to a feed garage in the back. Now everybody uses them for cars. But with 5 feet, you're not going to be able to do that. So it begs a couple of questions. The first one is, I'm assuming that people are going to be parking in the main structure, that the garages will be attached, number one. There will be no possibility, without getting your neighbor's permission, to bring a vehicle into the backyard. But it also brings up an issue about ADUs, accessory dwelling units, that the state and the cities are hot on the trail of forming regulations that allow them. If you were to build an ADU in the backyards of some of these buildings, you would not be able to get a car into the backyard to the ADU. I get that we want to sort of aggregate as much open space as we possibly can. I understand that, and I get that we want to increase density. I'm in favor of both of those things. But it seems to me we're being a little stingy with the setbacks. Maybe 10 feet would be a little bit more appropriate. I don't think you'd lose a house in that. I mean, this may be locked into those foundations. that Mr. Bertram was talking about, but it seems to me as we go forward outside of this particular venue into Greater Danbury in the RA 20s and the RA 80s, this could be down the road something that's somewhat short-sighted, and people may be scratching their head in 15 years saying, why can't I get an oil tanker back here? Why can't I can't get a car back here? I got to cut a tree down. The truck can't come back. I got to pour a patio. The cement truck can't come in. So it seems to me, and again, I grew up in a house where they were really, really close together. Another issue would be, of course, quality of life and noise. The closer they are, sound decreases with the square of the distance. 5 feet versus 10 feet is a 50% reduction in sound. So you're sort of asking for trouble down the road on that one. But I just want to be clear that Attorney Daniels was stating for the record that the setbacks would be 5 feet. I don't have this presentation in front of me. I don't have a copy of the slide. So I just wanted to make that clear through the chair. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Attorney Daniels, I'll call on you in a second, but I don't think anyone would, and it hasn't been in front of this commission, considering putting in or allowing an ADU on a condominium unit. And I don't think a particular unit owner up there on this specific project, because it would be a condominium, would be able to go out and do any exterior additions like patios or decks or anything like that against the association rules. But that's my opinion on a couple of your issues, Councilman. I'll let Attorney Daniels speak about the 5 foot and maybe if he has any comments about what I just said as well. Attorney Daniels?
Yeah, well, I mean, you were talking about the side yards, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the front, yeah, I mean, the side yards for the RA 20 and the RA 40 are 5 feet, and it's 15 feet for the RA 80. So yeah, I mean, that is in terms of the ADUs, I don't know of any plans to do that. I haven't looked at that issue. It hasn't been discussed with my clients. So I don't think that's on the drawing board. So
well, it's not as far as the city's concerned anyway. And I mean, I think that would be a whole host of issues. I mean, increasing units on a complex where you can't is another issue. So I don't think ADUs is anything to even be concerned about on a project like this one, Councilman Rotello. But future projects, I don't know.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, who said that?
That was Steve Sullivan here from TCA
Yes,
Engineers.
yes, Mr. Sullivan, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think what's being missed here is that the side yard is 5 foot each side. So you lay out these cluster single family homes as if they're on individual lots. It's like a theoretical side yard.
Yes.
So in actuality, you have 10 feet between the structures. It's 5 feet each side of the theoretical property line between the buildings.
Thank you. Councilman Rotello, you got that?
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chairman, on a couple of points, I'm not particularly concerned about ADUs at present.
Okay.
It's more of a theoretical thing. I'm concerned about being able to bring a vehicle into your backyard without encumbering or encroaching on your neighbor. I get that it's 10 feet, but that's not enough. It's not enough to get a vehicle. If somebody puts a fence up there, you've only got 5 feet, and the only thing you can get in there is a gator or something. So it precludes the use of bringing a vehicle into the backyard. Now, there may be a prohibition from the HOA. I mean, that's entirely possible. They don't want vehicles in the back, but by doing this, you prevent in perpetuity.
Or fences.
Exactly. But my point is that if you doubled it to 10 feet, the controlling interest in the parcel would be able to access the backyard. And also there would be a 50% reduction in sound, which is a big deal. The two huge things besides crime and maniacs living in your neighborhood are noise and smell. And if you can reduce both of those things, you dial down the instance of police calls and everything else. So it's not, from public policy point of view, it's not the worst thing in the world to put a little separation. And I find this a little bit too tight. That's what I had. And thank you for your time, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, absolutely.
Attorney Daniels.
Thank you, Councilman. Commissioner Rotello, Commissioner Botello.
Unmute.
You can, nope, unmute. Yep, now you're good.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, in general, I believe that with these shorter distances between the houses, I believe there's building codes that are going to say that you probably can't have a window facing each other if you're 5 feet off the property. I'd like to just qualify that because I ran into that with one of my projects, that because it was within the 5 or 8 feet of the line, even though it was acceptable, that you weren't able to put a window there. Is that still the rule for building, for the building code? Do you know? Maybe that's something Waleed would know.
Mr. Bertram, Director, do you know anything about that?
As you, Mr. Chair, usually that's the case if you are less than a specific distance. I don't know if it's 5 feet or it's actually less than 5 feet.
Okay, so that would be take care of the sound problem if you couldn't have window to window, which is in the smaller zones like the 1 acre zone or less, that you would do this in. All right.
And
Yes, you, Mr. Chair.
Oh,
I just would
okay.
like to shift the focus a little bit from what we usually deal with under site plan. All of these are not part of the zoning. I understand that it's very interesting to talk about it, but please just focus on the application as it stands. Because again, I would like to clarify a couple of points that were mentioned during the discussions in no order. I know that there was a question about engineering study in terms of the vehicles coming in and out. Absolutely. When we have a site plan application, if it is wanted, we ask for it. But it's not part of the zoning discussion. I believe there was another point that was mentioned about can a vehicle come in or out of the side yard? To clarify, are we talking about a big vehicle or a small one? The one that we use to mow for your lawn? If it's a small one, most likely you can do it. If it's an actual vehicle, most likely the design based on the regulation will require kind of a back lane. So that will actually help vehicles come in and out. So these are all design considerations that we always look at carefully when there's a site plan application, and they are reviewed and approved by engineering, planning, construction, a lot of different departments. So those ones maybe we don't have the answer for, because this is just zoning.
It's not necessary for us.
Yes. Another question that was asked at some point, and I don't know who exactly asked the question about, will it be ownership or rental? Usually the city does not control what happens. So even if I buy a house, I can lease it out to somebody else, unless the homeowner association have regulations saying I cannot do it. But from a city point of view, city does not interfere in ownership versus rental.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Neill.
I think a lot of things were addressed already. Thank you, Mr. Waleed. And I agree, like, everyone has to stay in their zone, but I also wanted to thank Commissioner Rotello, because he always seems to come up with pertinent questions that like planning would think about later, maybe about like the access or a back road, or that maybe the builders of the project would want to consider. I think they're valid, good questions, and even though they don't apply, I think it's good that everyone thought about them. So thank you, everybody, for your input.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? Is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? Is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? I will ask Attorney Daniels or Mr. Bertram, is anything you want to sum up? Anything that you want to finish up or address before I go on to close with the director?
No. Go ahead, Dan. Yeah.
And Ted, if you have anything, Dave,
No.
I think that was a good discussion, and I'll echo what Jen said.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. You good too?
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you for
Director,
the time.
thank you very much. Commission members, any questions of the director at this time? Commission members? I don't see any hands or hear anything. Director Al-Bakri, did you have anything you wanted to sum up in closing?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only thing I would like to mention, I would like to thank the representative from the applicant. It has been a really good collaboration. There was a lot of fine tuning, and the way the amended petition was submitted basically addressed all the comments and condition from staff and from the planning commission, and we worked after our planning commission meeting. That being said, again, I would like to emphasize the fact that yes, you were talking about a specific site. However, the zoning petition as submitted applies to any site, be it the future one or existing ones that are not complete.
Thank you. Commission members, last chance for questions of the director at this time. Commission members. Oh, Commissioner O'Neill, I see your hand.
I just wanted to point out how, when I was reading through this, like, what they were doing prior wasn't even having the amount of housing that cluster should have, and that planning picked that up and fixed that. And I think that's really important.
Thank you. Commission members, anything else? To the commission, we're not waiting for any reports, any exhibits. We've heard everything we're going to hear. So I would look for someone to make a motion to close this public hearing. Is there a motion? I see a hand of Commissioner Botello.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing.
Thank you. Is there a second? Is that Commissioner Nazario?
A second.
Hand up for the second. Commission members, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Closed. This public hearing is closed. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Commission members, there's no continuation of any public hearing. However, I am going to old business for discussion, possible action. I don't see a reason why we couldn't, unless there's a specific commission member that needs more time on this, but I would at this point look for a motion to move the petition of Bright Ravens to number 1 under old business for discussion of possible action. Commissioner Botello.
Yes,
what
I
you
would
want me to
make
do?
that motion to put it into old business for possible action tonight.
Commissioner Nazario, you're here to second that with the hand?
I am, I second.
Yes. Commission members, there's a motion to move there's a motion to bring the petition of Bright Ravens Development LLC to amend sections 4A6E and F of the zoning regulations to number 1 under old business for discussion of possible action. There is a motion to that effect and a second. Any discussion? Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Any opposition? Hands or voice? None. Okay, commission members, under old business for discussion possible action, number 1 is the petition of Bright Ravens Development LLC to amend sections 4A, 6E, and F of the zoning regulations. In parentheses, revise area and bulk requirements and density calculation for cluster developments in the RA zones. Public hearing was open on December 10th, 2024, and the public hearing was closed on December 10th, 2024. Commission members, what's your pleasure? Commission members, anybody want to make a motion? Commissioner Botello.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the application on the basis that the proposed amendment aligns with the following plans of conservation and development of POCD, the goals, principles, and objectives, expanding housing opportunities and design flexibility, concentrating development near transportation infrastructure, directing growth to well-serviced areas, expanding the house supply and diversity, reversing and modernizing zoning regulations, and also it's not to have any negative impact which would adversely affect health, safety, and welfare of the general public.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Botello. Is there a second? Commission members, is there a second to that? Is there a second to that motion to approve with reasons? Commissioner Nazario, is your hand up to second it?
Yes.
Yes, it is. Commission members, there's a motion with reasons to approve and a second. Any discussion? Now's the time for discussion. Any discussion? Commission members, any discussion? Is your hand still up, Commissioner Botello, for discussion? Oh,
No, I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem at all. We're gonna do a voice vote on this. So a yes is yes, a yes is yes. Commissioner Botello,
Yes.
Commissioner Nazario,
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett,
Yes.
Commissioner Cabrera. I'll wait for her to turn on her mic. Let's go over to Commissioner Jowdy. Commissioner Jowdy, unmute, please. There you are.
Cabrera is here.
I see it, Cabrera. Go ahead, Jowdy.
I'm a yes.
Yes, Commissioner Cabrera,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Neill. Unmute, please.
Spacebar wasn't working, sorry. Yes.
That's okay. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I will vote yes. We have 7 here. It's 7-0. So this petition is approved. Thank you to our director and for the petitioner for putting this together. I think it's good for Danbury. It's a long time coming to create this, to clarify this, and I think it's a good idea. Thank you all. Thank you, commission members
Great.
as well.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Good luck to
Good
you.
luck. Good luck,
Thank you.
Mr.
Good luck.
Good luck, Mr. Bertram.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Good night, everyone.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening.
Good night. Let's see where we are. Under new business, we petition the city of Danbury by Walid El Bakri, planning director, to delete and replace section 5F and amend section 2B of the zoning regulations, create downtown transit oriented development district D-TOD. Public hearing scheduled for January 28, 2025. So I'd like a motion from a commission member to receive this petition, refer it to the planning commission for their recommendation, notify all surrounding communities that need to be notified according to state statutes, publish it in the town clerk's office and all other necessary required publications according to state statutes, and set the public hearing date as it is scheduled on this evening's agenda for January 28, 2025. Commissioner Botello, do you make that motion?
Yes, I do, as pronounced by the chairman.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Jowdy. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those
Aye.
opposed? Thank you. Correspondence. The only correspondence we have this evening was a link for you to click on, which was next year's regular meeting schedule for 2025. Everyone should have gotten it. I see we have 3 months of only one meeting, but that's how holidays work. Nothing under for reference only. Are there any other matters for discussion? Any other
Mr.
matters?
Chairman,
Yes, Ms. Reed.
if we need an extra meeting, don't worry, I'll schedule it.
Okay. Thank you.
After you get over this one.
Yeah.
Yes. Any other matters? Any other matters? Any
We
other
promise you're not going to get coal in your stocking, Joanne.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. When do we meet again?
January.
14th.
January.
So it's
14th.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and every other
Yes.
holiday that's in between now and the 14th.
Sounds good. Yes.
Anyone want to make a motion to adjourn? Motion by Commissioner Bennett to adjourn, second by
Yes.
Commissioner Botello. Any
Yes.
discussion?
Here, here.
Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Let the record show we are adjourned at 8:21 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Yes,
Night.
thank you.
Boom.
Thank you. Good night.